This is Retire Hour.
Well, welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby, and I've got an interesting story to share with you this week. I met with a gal this past week in our office in Wichita, and let's call her Karen. Karen and her husband, they're both 65, great people, hard workers, and they've done a good job at saving over the years. Not flashy, just steady, disciplined savers who want to stay active and engaged. For them, work wasn't just about income, it was about a purpose, routine. They weren't counting down the days to retire. In fact, they were planning to keep working as long as they could. But life doesn't always stick to our plans. Karen's company, it recently made a decision, let's say it exercised an option in her contract and moved up her exit timeline. She thought she was going to retire in February 2027, and now it looks like it's going to be February or March of 2026. So now she wasn't being laid off, and technically she wasn't even forced to retire, but it certainly felt like it. And emotionally, it hit just the same. She was told she'd be receiving a deferred compensation package, and while that sounded like a blessing at first, it came with a lot of questions and uncertainty. She asked me, she goes, "Matt, I had no idea what this actually meant for us. Should we take our Social Security now? How could this impact our taxes? Maybe our Medicare premiums? I've heard about that on your radio show. So are we retiring now or not?" Her husband was equally caught off guard. Together, they'd worked hard to build a nest egg, but this situation brought more questions than answers. And truthfully, they didn't know where to turn. So Karen tried asking around, and she looked online. She even went to her human resources department, but they couldn't advise her on personal tax strategies, Medicare impacts, or how this could affect even her long-term plan. And that's when she found us, though. She reached out, unsure of what to ask, but she knew she needed guidance. I hear that a lot. I don't know what questions to ask, Matt. Where are the gaps? Where are the pitfalls in retirement? And her exact words were, "I just need someone who can help me understand how all these moving parts come together." And you know what? That's exactly what we do here at Market Advisory Group. So Karen and her husband, when they came in to set up a meeting and brought together everyone they needed to speak with all around the same table. A financial advisor to help map out the income options and evaluate the impact of either taking Social Security now or waiting till later. A tax advisor who took a look at timing and the structure of this deferred compensation package so they wouldn't get hammered with taxes. And a healthcare advisor to evaluate how their income would affect income-related monthly adjustment, or as we call it, IRMA, and your Medicare premiums. And then finally, the estate planning attorney team who helped them review their plan and update documents to reflect all the changes that have happened in their life. And at the end of that meeting, Karen looked at us and said, "This was an answer to prayer." Think about that. That phrase, it hit me. And honestly, we hear things like that more than you'd expect. And it gave me a sense of comfort to know that we had helped her get this burden off her shoulder. Because retirement isn't always this neat, predictable milestone. Sometimes it can be, and sometimes it happens earlier than you wanted. Or maybe a different way to say that, differently than you had envisioned or pictured. And when it does, you need more than just a financial advisor. You need a team that's coordinated, not siloed off where you're having to relay all the information between the people, but a team that's working together and not passing you off or around. Now, let me say something important about how we work with clients. We believe good planning should be accessible, but we also know that some people need and expect a higher level of service. So if you've saved more than $2 million or more and choose to work with us, we even go further. We pay for the tax return to be completed with Market Tax Services and that proactive tax planning that we have to do with our clients, or I say have to do, we should do and you need to do in the fourth quarter of every year, because I don't think that's optional if you're trying to avoid surprises. We also cover your estate plan if you have over $1 million with us, which I feel are often neglected. Or maybe a different way to say that is sometimes when people get them done, they just put them in a drawer and they forget about it. But life changes, and so does legal precedents and laws. And if you saved under $1 million, we still have these discounted services accessible to you, and everything we do is bundled to provide coordinated, cost-effective planning. Our advisory fee, the cost to manage your investments, we're fully transparent. You can go out there and check out our fees and benefits page at marketadvisorygroup.com. It's right there in the center of the homepage. There's no surprises, no hidden charges, and you can always ask the questions that are on your mind. But before you decide to do anything, let me tell you what the next best step is. If you haven't attended one of our in-person retirement classes or one of our online webinars, the place to start is simple. We talk about it every week on this show. Call in and schedule a 15-minute introductory call. I had 4 this past week. Thank you for that you listen to the show, that you're calling in and getting on the calendar. On that introductory call, we'll ask a few questions, get to know your situation, and help you figure out if we're a good fit to help. And if we're not, guess what? We'll tell you that too. So call us today at 833-44-CORE4. That's the word CORE, C-O-R-E. That's 833-442-6734. Or better yet, you can go out to that new resource we've developed, retirementhelp.com. And you can schedule that introductory call there online. And you know, sometimes life throws you a curveball, just like it did with Karen and her husband. And when it does, you deserve a team that can help you catch it. We're here when you're ready. And you know, we've got a full show for you this week. Coming up here at the bottom of the half hour here, we'll be talking with Danny Goolsby and about how Social Security is sounding some alarm bells on, hey, there's only 6 or 7 years here until we could be running out of money. And then later we'll be talking with Gerald Eidelman, one of our estate planning attorneys from Eidelman Law Firm. And then, of course, finishing out the show, we've got Joshua Sikora continuing this conversation about the impacts from this One Big Beautiful Bill. And speaking of One Big Beautiful Bill, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back, and I'll tell you some more stories about this One Big Beautiful Bill. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I was teaching a class this past week and I was talking about some of the things we talk on this show every week with Joshua Sikora, our lead tax advisor. He is the one that I rely on to tell me when tax laws change, when those little details that are always so important, you know, the devil's in the details. But so many nuanced things can happen in retirement in general, but specifically with taxes. And Joshua was telling me how there was an executive order that was signed, I think it was back in April or March, where maybe you're out there and if you pay quarterly estimates, you know, if your tax person gave you those vouchers to send in for your quarterly estimated taxes, well, you could use the voucher for quarter 1, you could use the voucher for quarter 2, but the executive order now says the government doesn't want to take any more paper checks. So you may have the 3rd and 4th quarter voucher out there, but let me tell you what, they're basically worthless. You can't use them. The government doesn't want to take paper checks anymore or issue paper checks, and they don't want to receive paper checks. So that even has an impact on Social Security payments if you don't have that direct deposit set up. And this is just a prime example of this ever-changing landscape in retirement. And I was mentioning this at the class. I don't know why. It was an estate planning class. I just felt compelled to throw that out there. And I had a lady come up to me afterwards, and she said, I had no idea. My tax person didn't call me and tell me this. What should I do? And I said, well, you can either come in and have a chat with us, and we can help you with that, or I'd call back up to your tax person, and I'd ask them, how do you pay this online? And she goes, well, it's the summer. My tax person only works, you know, January through about May, and then they take the rest of the year off. I don't want to wait that long. So she's coming in. But these are just, again, a classic example of why I believe the retirement system in America is broken. And what I mean by broken is it puts so much responsibility on the retiree's shoulders and not on the professionals that people go out and hire. Because if you have an estate planning attorney, if you have someone helping you with your Medicare or your healthcare decisions, if you have someone preparing your taxes, and maybe you even have a financial advisor, are they all around the same table? Are they having those conversations in real time to identify any gaps or mistakes, or worse yet, costly overpaying of taxes needlessly, this is why we work together as this team. So it transfers the responsibility from the retiree's shoulder, i.e. you guys, onto the professionals, because we're working together, coordinating all that information into one place so we can get clarity in your retirement. And this one big beautiful bill, this is just another example of how the tax laws change. And it's been law for less than a month now, but there's some important changes if you're over the age of 65. You get an extra I think it's being called the senior bonus deduction of $6,000. And this was their way of trying to make up for, on the campaign trail, they promised, hey, we're going to eliminate the tax on Social Security. And I cannot tell you, I think it'd probably be 4 or 5 that are coming to mind that I've met with people in this office that are just under the impression, because the clips they get from the news, that Social Security isn't taxable. But that's not right. It depends on how much of your other income you have, and then the standard bonus, the standard deduction, then the senior bonus deduction gets stacked on top of that. And if you are under adjusted gross income and you're single, under $75,000 in income, you get this full $6,000. Now, this is changing the tax rates on people when they're taking withdrawals. So if you've got a withdrawal set up out there with your advisor, and you're also collecting Social Security, has your advisor reached out to you and said, hey, we need to adjust those tax withholdings? Hey, you might be over withholding, or worse yet, you might be under withholding. And do you really want that nasty surprise when you go file your taxes next year and find out you owe more, or maybe worse yet, you gave the government an interest-free loan? You don't want to have these tax surprises that happen all too often. I mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. In America, we go get gas, we see how much we're paying per gallon, right? When we're filling up. You go to the grocery store, whether it's Dillon's, Walmart, Hy-Vee, Price Chopper, wherever you shop, you see the stickers on the items, the price tags, and say, okay, I kind of know what that costs. You go out to a restaurant, you see the item menus and you see what they cost. The point I'm trying to make here is most everything we do as Americans, we have a pretty good idea what it's going to cost us before we go forward. But with taxes, I find it's so confusing, and something over here can affect something over here, and people don't get the clarity they need to not only make informed decisions, but also to avoid those nasty tax surprises, whether it's underpaying in taxes and you owe a lot and maybe penalties and interest, or sometimes I think it's even worse yet when you overpay the government and you give them that interest-free loan. And if you don't have tax planning, how are you knowing what's going on in your situation until you do your tax return next year? That's what we want to help you with, and that's what we do in the fourth quarter. And I was already looking at my calendar for this fourth quarter. I don't have a lot of availability. It's already getting booked up. And if you're thinking to yourself, I need to know how this one big beautiful bill and this extra senior bonus deduction impacts me, you know how you can find out? By scheduling a 15-minute introductory call. And you can do that by calling 833-44-CORE4. That number again is 833-44, the word CORE, C-O-R-E, 4. And we'll have that introductory phone call with you. It just takes about 15 minutes and get to know your situation, maybe answer some questions you have. But more importantly, we can tell by just having a brief conversation if you could benefit from going through our full process. And that's our Core 4 report. We take a look at the tax areas, we take a look at the estate planning area, the healthcare, and also the financial ramifications of everything that's going on in your situation. And if you don't have a team that you can get around the same table and have these conversations in real time, again, schedule that 15-minute phone call. It's the first step in our process. And you can do that by calling 833-44-CORE4, or that's 833-442-6734. Or better yet, you can go over to that new website we built, retirementhelp.com. Lots of new things coming there. We're hopefully launching our webinars here in the fall on that platform. And we really want to be an educational resource for you. But better yet, we want to help you avoid those costly surprises and mistakes that we talk about on this show every week. We don't want you to have to suffer and pay the price. Someone told me the other day, knowledge is cheap, meaning listening to the show, you're getting knowledge, but experience, that's expensive. And we meet so many people where I wish we would have met them sooner so we could have helped them avoid these costly mistakes in the different areas: estate planning, taxes, financial, and of course your healthcare decisions. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. We're going to talk with Danny Goolsby about Social Security, and it's kind of ringing some alarm bells. You won't want to miss this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more right after this short break. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby, and if you're listening to this show or watching it on Cox Cable 22 or YouTube or however you get the show, we appreciate you watching. But think about this. Could you make it? Could you financially survive if all of a sudden you're only having 75% of your income coming in and all of a sudden 24% disappears? We've got Danny Goolsby here to talk about how Social Security, the trust funds, maybe sounding the alarm bells is a little strong choice of words, but they're saying, hey, this is going to run out of money. Tell us what's going on here.
Well, so I've heard most of my career that Social Security was going to have a shortfall at some point. And, if you look back at any of the sci-fi TV shows from my childhood, Buck Rogers was a big one, and it was Buck Rogers in the 25th century. And so, but here we are in 2025. It's not the 25th century, but it sure seems like 2025 at one point was really a long time away, and all of a sudden it's upon us. Well, towards Social Security, when people retire, one of the things right before they go through their metrics or try to do their due diligence to figure out where's my income streams going to come from retirement, do I get a pension? Do I have rentals? Do I have farm income? Do I have a nest egg that I can pull off of that? One of the things, but most of us will start with when we start that puzzle is, okay, my Social Security. And most of us were forced to pay into that system during our work career. There's a few of us that didn't have to, but most of us had to pay into that system. So that's kind of a default setting where we go when we're starting to try to figure out where the income is going to come from at retirement. And then the question becomes from there is, okay, when do I take my Social Security? Do I take it at 62? Do I take it at 60, my full retirement age, whatever that may be? Do I take it at 70 or some point in between all of those numbers? So where do I take my Social Security where I can maximize my income? So you put together your plan. I'm going to take Social Security at a certain age. I'm going to be able to derive my rest of my cash flow needs. You've got your budget together, and so you know how much cash flow you're going to need, not accounting for inflation, not accounting for taxes. How many more variables can I throw in here? But, it's kind of like the more variables you throw into an equation, the harder it is to solve. And so one of the things that we do when we sit down and talk with people all the time in the conference room is that they'll tell us, man, I don't know what questions to ask. I've never been here before. And often we will say that, there's not a dress rehearsal for retirement. So you're neurotically almost trying to figure out where's your cash flow going to come from. And so, again, the bedrock of most people's cash flow is Social Security. And again, as I said, the time is when to take it. So as I said, you've got your cash flow together. You're going to take Social Security at a certain age. You're going to get maybe a pension. You're going to get you have a nest egg that is going to help you with the rest of your income. You may have to work a part-time job. So wherever your cash flow comes from, and now you've sailed off into retirement. And so as the old folk books go, you're living happily ever after. And then
happy ending.
Well, we'll see here if that remains. And Congress has been telling us, though, that there's going to be a shortfall with Social Security. They've been telling us for years now, and yet time is blinking by really rapidly fast. And so it seemed like there for a time when we were in school, maybe when I was in high school, time was just dragging on. Now I'm an adult, time is flying by. And so this 2025 shortfall will be here before, or this 24% shortfall by the year 2032 is what they're telling us now.
It was 2034, now it was 2033, but now this one big beautiful bill, since this $6,000 bonus deduction is actually taking some money away from Social Security.
Yeah, it's accelerating it. And then there's some other factors that I won't get into that political side of the conversation, but the shortfall is all right, so you're retired. And if Congress happens to cut Social Security by some way,
I don't think they're going to cut it. I mean, they'll print the money, they'll raise taxes. They're not going to cut it. That's just that. No, I've learned observing politicians. They like one thing: to get reelected.
That's exactly right. There's 90 million people that take Social Security currently. So yeah, it is political suicide for them to cut it. So they're going to fix it somewhere.
And they could raise taxes. They could increase the payroll tax. They could eliminate the wage cap on high earners. They'll probably reduce benefits for wealthy retirees. They'll probably do that could even phase them out altogether by raising the taxes on the benefits while people are collecting in retirement. Or maybe even raise the full retirement. There's probably not going to be one fix to it. It's probably going to be a combination.
Yeah, I agree. As you said, they're going to raise taxes. They're going to print more money. When I was visiting with my father when he was alive, I'd go by and see him and reminisce with him and hug on him and love on him. And finally, he'd say, Danny, I'm glad you're here. It's good to catch up. But would you please go back to work? I need my Social Security check. And I say that to say it is also a pay-as-you-go system. So the workforce today is actually paying for retirees of today as well. So there's going to be a big catch. But the question I want to pose to the audience is when you do get, you mentioned curveballs earlier in an earlier segment, when you get a curveball where 24% of your income, if they have to adjust Social Security in any way, shape, or form, what does that do to your quality of life? What does that do to your peace of mind? How do you adjust? The message that I want to discuss today is how do you adjust? If you don't have a plan that's fluid, and certainly if you don't have a team behind you that can help you with that fluid adjust. You know, you and I were talking off break or during the break that, yeah, Social Security is talking about a 24% shortfall. And then you mentioned, well, yeah, what about the shortfall that taxes are going to happen? So if you've got a nest egg that is predominantly through pre-tax or traditional retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, that kind of thing, you're going to have another shortfall. And these things start compounding. When life is supposed to be slower and easier and a slower peace of mind when you retire. But when you have these things come at you during retirement, how do you deal with that?
Well, you come and call us. That's what you do.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, right. So they get a lot of terms get thrown around like means testing. That's meaning like if you have a large IRA, so you got $2 million and you're at your RMD age, you're having to take out more than $70,000 in required minimum distribution. I believe they're going to tax you pretty heavily if you have that high of income. And there's things you can do now to help soften that, I believe, but so many people are not really looking at that.
They're not. And you bring up means testing. They're already doing means testing now. And so the more income, the more assets you have that you've been able to, through discipline and sacrifice, acquire in your adult life, they may be saying at some point to you, you're no longer qualified for Social Security or a piece of it. Again, the options are all over the board.
And there's more people retiring and going to be on Social Security than it's going to be working and paying into it. That's going to be a problem too. And guys, if you don't have someone that you can reach out and ask questions of when these things come up, or better yet, be prepared for them, reach out and schedule a 15-minute introductory call with us at 833-44-CORE4, or that number again is 833-442-6734, or you can hop on over to our website at retirementhelp.com, or better yet, Market Advice Group. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby, and as a financial advisor, I will tell you, I get all kinds of questions thrown at me, and I might know some things. God forbid I Google it or search the internet and say, hey, what's the answer to this? That's not really probably a good thing to do, but I get a lot of questions around healthcare, more importantly, Medicare. And this is just a classic example where if you're not working with a team that can help you navigate these issues, then you're going to have maybe some sleepless nights, maybe cost yourself more in money because this mistake happened. And we've got Trey Bassa here with Market Medicare Advisors. And you have this story where someone got a big bill, not the one big beautiful bill, but a big medical bill. Mm-hmm. And how much was that?
It's $24,000.
Oh my gosh.
This piece of mail just came to them randomly last month for a surgery that Susan had just last summer. So there was a huge delay, and all of a sudden, they're expected to pay $24,000.
I can imagine that this probably caused them some anxiety, some stress, and walk me through what's going on in their situation. Was obviously waiting to almost a year later to get the bill for the procedure. What's going on here? I've got a lot of questions.
So what happened was Susan had gotten a knee surgery replacement last summer, and under their Advantage plan, they thought that they had paid their copayment, that everything was taken care of. But just last month, this piece of mail came to them requesting $24,000 to be paid for that surgery.
So they just wrote a check for $24,000, no big deal, and then they don't owe it, so they could sleep at night, right?
First off, they stood around in silence.
Sure.
They're like, "What is this asking for? Where did this come from?" And after they got over the pure shock and awe of $24,000, they picked up the phone. They gave me a call, and Bob was like, "Before I take this to the insurance commission, before I throw a fit, can I sit down and talk to you about it?" I said, "Absolutely, please. Let's make an appointment and start to figure this out."
This is probably something I don't highlight enough, and I should. When you guys work with people, you don't just put them in the plan and then walk away. You guys are helping review it, you're helping service it. And had someone found someone online or bought their plan online direct or called one of those 800 numbers to buy over the phone, who would they reach out to when they got this? Who would they reach out to?
Very rarely. I don't think they would have a name to even try and contact, let alone like an exact number to reach out to. It's usually that same customer service number where folks are going through a call tree and they're navigating through all of the robot voices and numbers to try and talk to a representative. Where at the end of the day, Bob and Susan had the ability to pick up the phone, call our office, and schedule something, talk to me directly and schedule something on my calendar.
So this is a couple you've been previously helping.
Yeah, for about a year. I think our first introduction was like a year plus ago, so kind of before the surgeries and stuff was taking over. I reviewed their plans last October. We found an Advantage plan that just put them in a little bit better situation for this year. But now, that bill that came through, they're like, well, do we try and go through our old insurance company, or do we have to go through our new insurance company and pay a different copayment, et cetera?
I can imagine a couple getting hit with this bill. They didn't really know anyone to call but you, the person that's been helping them navigate these issues.
Precisely. I took it as a moment of pride that they felt confident enough to pick up both the phone and call me and ask for some assistance with this.
So $24,000 bill from over a year. Gosh, I don't know what I would do if I was a retiree that had bought my policy online or, again, bought it from one of those 800 numbers. You wouldn't even know where to turn. And I bet this $24,000 invoice caused some sleepless nights with them.
For them especially, yeah. When they thought everything was said and done, that bill just came out of the blue and really scared the ever-living
Crap
jeepers.
Out of them.
Oh, okay.
We can say crap on radio.
Okay.
But this is just, again, a classic example of, if I were their financial advisor, I wouldn't know how to deal with this. And I have you and your team as a resource there that we can rely on. And, you said Advantage plan. You don't have a preference on an Advantage plan or a supplement. You're working with them to make sure they're going to get the coverage that they need. So I know some people don't like Advantage plans, and maybe that's something we need to talk about in the future. But is there a happy ending here?
There is. After we sat down with all of these forms, these papers, Bob, super diligent on paperwork and note taking. After we sat down and we came up with a timeline, took a look at everything, Bob had talked to the right people to track down what we call prior authorization. The doctor's office had prior authorization. The insurance company just lost it. They didn't have it. I'm not 100% sure what happened there.
The black hole that is an insurance company. And just poof. Someone faxed it. Maybe they just didn't put it in their file.
Right.
So because they had the prior authorization, this was going to be covered?
Yes. Yeah, they would not have proceeded if they had not gotten prior authorization from the insurance company. It's just way after the fact they said, we don't have it. We don't know.
Right. Well, thank goodness they had you as a resource that they could go engage with and have a discussion, and you helped them navigate this. Did they owe anything out of pocket?
No, they already paid their copayment. It was covered.
So that is a pretty good ending, right?
Yes.
And so, guys, if you're listening or watching out there, however you're getting this show, Think about this. If you got a surprise $24,000 bill in the mail and you're on Medicare, who would you call? Would you even know a resource to go reach out to help you lobby and fight the insurance company and say, no, we don't owe this? And if you don't have that person, or if no one's coming to your mind, reach out and schedule a 15-minute introductory call with us, 833-44-CORE4. That number again is 833-44-CORE4, 833-442-6734. Or you can go over to retirementhelp.com and book that 15-minute introductory call to make sure you have someone that can advocate on your behalf when these surprises hit you in retirement. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back talking with Gerald Eidelman from Eidelman Law Firm right after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour. We've got Gerald Eidelman here of Eidelman Law Firm, and you were our original first attorney.
Yes.
Now you've grown. We've got several here that help us because people are catching on. This concept is really revolutionary. This concept is really more beneficial for the people that work with us because they're not having to run all around and get all these different professionals and relay their situation to them and know all the details. I find that creates gaps in people's retirement plan. But you actually have a story to share with us about someone that recently lost their spouse,
Right.
but that meant they needed to do some things, right?
Now, I do want to go back to what you were saying. And coincidental, yesterday, I was dealing with a client who had talked to one of our tax advisors and had talked to me, and we had apparently two different opinions.
No way.
And we had given her different advice. And I thought I was right, and
The tax advisor.
but I didn't know if he was right, and I was overlooking something. Well, imagine if we weren't here in the same place. I went to his office. I asked him. We had a discussion for about 10 minutes, and we found out that the way we were going to do it was right. But imagine me having to call somebody, trying to get a hold of them, getting permission from the client to talk to that third party, and trying to get information relayed, because the person who was getting the estate plan done heard one thing, which was nothing of what the tax advisor had told her. And it's amazing how relaying information for the client is so difficult.
Well, they have to know all these technical terms.
Exactly.
They have to speak the jargon, and they may be able to tell you what they want. But if you're not looking at the tax return or you're not their tax advisor, there's certain things going on. But their estate planning attorney,
That's right.
There's other things to consider there. You guys got together and worked the problem out.
So it took 10, 15 minutes, and we had it solved.
Now, the alternative to that is someone has to relay all that information to their tax person, then go back to their estate planning attorney. Then the attorney has them go back to it's like a tennis match.
Oh, yeah, everything gets lost in the middle and, confused. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out
appreciate
because it's a good example of how we work together to create, better services for our clients.
Coordination,
yeah.
and this is a story that you've got to talk with us this week. This is about someone who recently lost their spouse.
Yes. A gentleman came to me a couple of days ago, and his spouse unfortunately had passed on July 4th of all days. And he came very anxious and desperate. He brought me a stack of books and said, what do I need to do next? Mm-hmm. Do I need to start moving? Am I running late? Sometimes people think it's callousness, but a lot of people sometimes think when their spouses die, in this case, Jeff and Jane, who passed away, they think that if they don't do something immediately, they might be losing out on some benefit, or the government might be getting something from them. And so my job was to walk him through it and explain to him. Now, the first thing that people should know is that there is a time certain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not forever.
Time sensitive, sure.
That's right. But it's not the day after the person dies. I mean, I actually have had family members call me a day after the person died, not because they're greedy, but because they're anxious because now they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And in this case, he I mean, he didn't manage any of the finances. He didn't manage he didn't even know about his estate plan. He just knew he had a book that was about his estate plan.
Had his wife Jane kind of taking care of those duties?
She was and it's funny because he felt that because he didn't have a high education, that was his problem. But I'll be honest with you, it has nothing to do with the level of education you have. This is a sensitive matter. People don't know unless they're doing it, unless they've done it before. And so if you're panicking, that's normal. It doesn't mean that you're desperate for the money. But you should know that there is a time limit within which you can work that is reasonable. Now, our biggest issue here right now, at least in this state, in Kansas and Missouri, is the 6-month period in which you have to submit a will.
So if there's a will, it needs to be recorded with the court, the probate court, within 6 months of someone's passing.
That's right. Sometimes people don't realize that we wrote a will and then come back 3 years later, so now we want to enforce it. And I had to give them bad news, like that will is no longer valid because the 6 month after the death of the individual has passed, and you're stuck with the laws of the state, not what it says on that will.
So why would someone need to have a will if they're married and, they're probably both on their house, they're probably both on their cars, or maybe one's car? Why does someone need to file a will when they lose a spouse? Why can't they just keep living in their house, doing their life, and go on down the road?
Well, they can, but a lot of times the reality is that people have separate accounts, either by design or by the fact that they want to separate their assets. If you have a retirement account, that's going to be an individual account. There's not a share account.
The I in IRA stands for individual, not institutional retirement account, right? Right.
Right.
So this person that came in, obviously, you're saying this was not his lane. His wife Jane took care of most of these things, and we're calling him Jeff and Jane. That's not their real name. But I'm sure Jeff was overwhelmed, and he didn't have any idea where to start.
No, he did not. He just needed to call us because he saw us in the TV, and he was panicking that his time was running out, and so I had to just reassure him we have time. Now there's things you want to put into place, to protect your rights, but you're not going to be you're not going to lose your inheritance or your share of your wife's wealth just because a week has passed or a month has passed.
You don't have to be there the day after.
Correct.
Grieve a little bit, be with your family, but
that's exactly right.
Do understand there is that 6 month time limit.
Right, there. Right. In his case, the other thing is he had a estate plan. Well, the estate plan names the spouse as the primary, caretaker, guardian, conservator, executor, everything. And then after that, the kids came into place. Mm-hmm. Well, that's fine in the sense that we have a backup written in the paperwork. But every time you present that power of attorney, you're going to have to come up with a death certificate of the spouse to justify the fact that the next person is the one that's in charge now.
So Jane was Jeff's financial power of attorney.
Right.
She's on there, but if you don't update that document, you have to carry around Jane's death certificate with that document.
Essentially, and some places might want an original. So the first thing I said is, let's get these documents revised. Let's put the kids and remove your spouse. And that was the way to ameliorate any possible problems.
If you guys don't have a resource you can reach out to when this happens, call us at 833-44-CORE4. That's 833-44-CORE4, or you can hop on over to our website at retirementhelp.com and schedule that 15-minute introductory call. You can do it from wherever you're at. Talk to someone, they were on their boat the other day. That was kind of cool.
Is that right?
But stay tuned. We'll be right back with Joshua Sikora talking more about this tax changes from the One Big Beautiful Bill. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Retire Hour. We've got the tax portion of the show now, and you have something that you and I haven't even talked about, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And this crap changes all the time, and that's why if you're not staying up to date on this, it can be very confusing. But tell us what's going on with this one big beautiful bill.
Okay, so let's kind of be honest here. For a lot of people, filing their taxes isn't that complicated. They get these forms in the mail, they put them in, and it goes on the form. They look, okay, I've got medical, I've got state and local taxes I pay, mortgage insurance, do some charitable giving. Is that bigger than the standard? Yeah, no. And then run through, figure out the tax, figure out what you paid, end of story. That's how it was.
Not anymore?
Not anymore. So the one big beautiful bill act, OB3.
As you call it, OB3.
OB3. It creates some new things, right? And so we've talked about before on the show about the senior deduction. So that's another deduction people get. If they're over 65, then it's $6,000, and that's per person on the return. So, if you have a joint return, you're both over 65, you each get $6,000. We really haven't talked too much about the overtime deduction, the tips deduction, the car loan interest deduction. What people aren't realizing, though, those are not itemized deductions. Each one of these is a separate deduction. So these are like there's going to be like 6 different decision points that you'll have to go through. Not just standard or itemized, but then do you get a qualified business income deduction? Just because you don't have a small business doesn't mean you don't get that. And there's situations where that can come into play. The senior deduction. Are you working in a situation where you're making overtime and you get a deduction for the extra bit of overtime you pay? You get, if overtime's time and a half, the regular time is going to be taxed as always, but you can get a deduction for the half part, but there's income guides to that.
I don't even know how that's going to be reported. That's going to be a mess, but...
Oh, we can talk about that here in a second. There's situations where industries where tips are customary and voluntary, people who receive those tips can get a deduction. If you buy a new American assembled vehicle, you can get a deduction on your car loan interest. But these are all decisions that someone's going to have to make. Now, they can wait till the tax return comes around and whatever happens, happens. But wouldn't it be great if you could intentionally take advantage of those deductions on a time of your choosing?
How would you do that?
Well, that's where tax planning comes into play.
No
way. Yeah. So, if you could sit down and walk through these deductions and realize the benefits it's going to give you, and then make intentional changes to take advantage of that, might that be of value to somebody? I could see situations where it might.
So this OB3, whenever I hear you say that, it kind of makes me think Star Wars. Help me, OB3. You're my only hope.
It's funny you mentioned about we don't know how they're going to report that. The IRS doesn't know how they're going to report that.
To quote Nancy Pelosi, we had to pass the bill before we knew what was in it.
So at a recent speaking engagement, the new IRS commissioner, Billy Long, says that he suspects we may not see tax season starting until President's Day.
Wow.
That he's talked about how they'll need every day between now and then to get things set up to handle filing season. So we could be seeing a delayed start, which means
less time for you to get everything done before April 15th.
A compression of chaos is what that means.
So real briefly, because we're running out of time, do these deductions, do they sunset after 2028?
Yep.
So really you have 4 years to take advantage of this.
4 years to take advantage of it.
How are people going to know if they're really maximizing it for their situation?
Well, if they're just putting this together on their own, they probably don't. That's where talking to somebody who sees these things day in, day out, who's working with people to make sure they're maximizing their benefits in a way of their choosing can help out.
So, correct me if I'm wrong here. You do normally, but so it looks like the government was trying to make things easier, but normally that doesn't have that effect. Normally it complicates things.
That's never happened before.
Never?
Never.
So when we're going through tax planning, and my calendar is full.
Yep.
I was looking at that the other day. I was trying to get someone in. I did not have a lot of options left. I'm sure people are already booking those tax planning appointments with you right now.
Demand is high.
Demand should be high because all this stuff has changed. And if you don't know how this is going to impact you, don't wait until you file your tax return next year, because you can't really take advantage of any of these benefits that are now in the tax code. And if you don't have someone that's helping you with your tax advice, reach out and schedule a 15-minute introductory call with us. You can do that by calling 833-44-CORE4. That number again is 833-44-CORE4 or 833-442-6734. Or you can hop on over to retirementhelp.com and you can book that 15-minute introductory call with us. It's no obligation, no charge for that. We just want to figure out what's going on in your situation and to see really if you can benefit from going through our full Core 4 report, looking at the taxes, the finances, the healthcare, and the estate plan. Well, we thank you for tuning in this week. We'll see you back here next week on Retire Hour.
Investment advisory services are duly offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The investment advisor representatives of Market are also affiliated with and registered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, and may provide services on behalf of both firms to client or prospective clients where properly licensed or exempt. This show is presented by Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor that only conducts business in jurisdictions where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in the practice of law or accounting. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the show's publication and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this show is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities and other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. This is not endorsed by the U.S. government or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all your options. All client or prospective client names have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. All rights reserved.